Welcome to the fourth episode as part of the Raspberry Pi series on this channel. In this episode, I'll show you how to add web server components to your Raspberry Pi so that you can either host a website or at least access it via HTTP requests from your local network. First, we'll install Apache. This is a component that will be the gatekeeper. It's basically the outermost layer that's going to handle incoming HTTP requests and then redirect them accordingly. It can either allow or forbid incoming visitors from accessing parts of your Raspberry Pi's web directories. Then we'll install and configure PHP. This is a programmable interface between HTTP requests that are passed down from Apache and how we want the Raspberry Pi to deal with them. So for example, someone hits a URL hosted on your Raspberry Pi. Do you want to show them an error page or fetch maybe a blog post from the database and load it in their web browser? The next major part is installing and configuring MySQL. This is a component that's responsible for storing and retrieving relevant information from the databases that will be stored on your Raspberry Pi. Finally, we'll install PHPMyAdmin so you can manage your databases that are set up on your Raspberry Pi through their web browser. So to get started, let's go ahead and run the following command: sudo apt-get update. So this will get your Raspberry Pi to download the latest information on packages that we need to download. First, we'll install Apache. So go ahead and run the following command, and then give your Raspberry Pi a few minutes to finish. Next, it's time to install PHP. So run this command, then allow the installation process to finish. You may get a "do you want to continue" message. If that's the case, just type Y and then hit enter. Once the installation is complete, change the directory to /var/www and then run the following command. So by doing this, we are making sure that our Pi user has ownership to all the files inside the public HTML folder. This is ordinarily where we manage files for our web server or potentially website. Now it's time to restart the Apache service to see if we encountered any issues during the installation. Run the following command and ensure that you get an OK back. And if not, go back and make sure there weren't any typos from the last step. Next, it's time to download and install MySQL. Go ahead and run the following command and maybe give it a few minutes to finish. Don't forget that since we have MySQL installed, we'll need to create an admin user and grant it global privileges. So first, run the following command: sudo mysql. This will start the DB monitor for us to start running queries. So run the following query, but replace admin and password with the credentials that you want to use. Once you hit enter, you should have gotten a query OK back. Now we'll run another query that'll grant all privileges to our admin user. Just replace admin with the name that you went with in the previous step. Once again, you should have gotten a query OK back, which means success. Now to exit the DB monitor and go back to your Raspberry Pi's command line interface, just type exit and then hit enter. Now let's go over the installation procedure for PHPMyAdmin. Go ahead and run the following command. At some point, you may get to choose a web server for configuring PHPMyAdmin. Make sure to choose Apache 2 and then hit the enter key. While the installation procedure is setting up the package, it may ask you to configure the database for dbconfig common. Choose yes unless you know what you're doing and you wish to do this manually yourself. Finally, it'll ask you for a MySQL application password for PHPMyAdmin. I recommend leaving this blank and letting the system generate it because we already created our admin user for our needs, so we probably have no use for this user. The installation will now come to an end. Next, we need to let Apache's configuration become aware of our PHPMyAdmin config. Run the following command and go all the way to the bottom of the file. We need to add a line to include the Apache config from PHPMyAdmin's installed location. Without this line, you'll run into access problems when trying to reach PHPMyAdmin. Hit Ctrl X and then answer with Y, followed by the enter key. Now we'll restart the Apache service so that it picks up on the configuration change that we just made. Make sure you get an OK back from that last command. If not, you should go back to the previous step and make sure there were no typos in the config file. Next, I would recommend restarting the Raspberry Pi using the sudo reboot command. Although it's not required, it's a great way to assert that all the web server components that we just installed start alongside the Raspberry Pi's boot up process. Finally, let's see if everything works. So go ahead and open a web browser and try to hit your Raspberry Pi's hostname preceded by http://. You should see the Apache 2's default homepage load. Now let's try to access PHPMyAdmin by appending /PHPMyAdmin to our endpoint. You can use the admin user we created earlier to log in. So if you followed the steps in this video, your Raspberry Pi should now be equipped to handle HTTP web requests. And in the next video for our Raspberry Pi series, I'll show you how you can easily host a full-fledged blogging website on your Raspberry Pi for free in just minutes using these components that we just installed. Thanks for watching, and for more on Raspberry Pi, please consider subscribing to this channel.